Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting together in order here. We'll go ahead and have Deb give us a report. Deb?
The fund account balances are at $529,842.50, and we have $4,223,054 invested, and the line of credit is at $230,368.99.
Are there any questions of Bev?
I got one question about this. I wonder what this one item is there about the drug sheet, street value. What's that?
The drug street value is a fine that comes from the circuit clerk's office that they assess in court.
Okay.
So that money comes down from the circuit clerk's
I
office.
thought maybe the county was in business. I didn't know.
No, not that I know.
We'd be in better shape if we were.
At least they're making money.
Well, Fred, did you have your question answered?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
A couple comments I would like to make as Finance Committee Chairman. I appreciate the reports that Beth does and Phyllis gets out for us. There's a revenue and expense report that Phyllis does, and I'd like to call your attention to it. It's good news. I always like to talk about good news. In the general fund, year to date, well, let's start with the month first. We did have a good March. We had $442,000 in revenue come in through that period. We had expenses of $394,000, excess revenue of about $48,000 for the year to date. We're running slightly, in the black now. I do know that we are on a cash basis here, not an accrual basis, correct, Phyllis?
Yes.
Okay. So, but, accrual or cash, it's always helpful to see, that, we are, operating, in an efficient manner. I think the county board has worked very hard, over the last, year and a half, to have these types of results. I'd also like to call your attention on the report that Phyllis did for the first 4 months of the year, and I really need to get glasses, but for the first 4 months of the year, it appears right now that outside prisoner revenue is down about 10%. We're going to obviously watch that here. Next couple of months, we hope to see that pick up. We're hoping that the weather conditions will help bring more Cook County inmates our direction. I did see the sheriff walk in, at least I thought I did. Okay. I was just going to ask him if he was hearing any, George, with the sheriff not being here and law enforcement committee, are you hearing any thing about Cook County and increasing their inmates?
No, not, at the law enforcement meeting, I did ask that question, as I do every time, and they're just waiting to see if we were gonna get any more from them.
Okay.
No promises.
Okay, well, but year to date, it's running right now about 10% under what was budgeted. So, like I said, we'll watch this the next few months to hopefully see an improvement there. Are there any other questions on the financial report? motion to accept?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, probation report.
My
Vicki
report
Hanson.
is on the green sheet, and it's, it's printed. If there's any questions.
Are there any questions, Vicki, regarding probation? Hearing none, a motion to approve is in order. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public health?
Yeah, I wasn't, at the public health meeting. It was held at 10:15 in the AM on March 19th, so I'm not real privy on any other information. Seems like I was here tonight.
Is there a report? There's a report in our packet. isn't there? Okay. Motion would be in order to accept the report.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Law enforcement, Mr. Howard?
Okay, your report is, law enforcement's, in the packet. Looks like we're current on, jail payments as far as foreign prisoners. Your totals are on there. Give you a chance to look those over.
Are there any questions for George on the financials?
George, it says we're short 297.87. Does that show up on yours, or does that?
Were you looking at that?
I'm looking at this.
That was actually October 12th, or?
Yes, October 2012. I didn't know if that had been changed or not, or if it's been the same for that over a period of time or not. Do you remember?
I'm not sure. Paul, do you know about that? The one up here where it says, 12/17/2012, 297.87, it's a short, shows up as a shortage. Seemed like that had been paid.
Those are all paid.
Yeah, I thought they were. I know we asked that question at the last meeting.
Doesn't have a paid behind it. We got this today, the February, the
Yeah.
61. We got that for US Marshals. You turn your page over, all we're short for cook is 4,500 plus the pharmacy.
Yeah,
So we're all paid up to date.
yeah.
Okay.
I thought we asked on that one last month, and that was, that had been paid. So. Any other questions?
Motion to approve the law enforcement financial is in order.
So moved.
Second. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second issue we have under law enforcement financials is the jail refinance policy, which is also in your packet. I'm gonna turn that over to Ted since that's kind of his baby.
Thank you, George. I would like to share just a few thoughts before I actually read the policy, and then we can have a discussion. My first statement is that I believe that most members of this county board are in favor of this refinancing, including me. Number two, I certainly do not want the jail to fail. That would be a disaster. to our county. Number three, as I was putting this policy together, I have reached out to Dan, as our special board manager asked me to do. I'm creating a policy for the board to review. I've not yet heard back from Dan. Number four, I believe this policy describes our current situation accurately. As I understand the representations that were made to the public. If I'm mistaken, because I was not on the county board at that time, please let me know. As you can clearly see, this policy is a draft format. And I'm open to any suggestions in improving this policy as long as the taxpayers are protected. This policy, if approved, could not obligate future boards, as mentioned by our state's attorney in an email to Dan and I last week. I'm in total agreement with Gregg on this issue. If a future board chooses to not follow this policy, that board will be responsible to the voters, not this board, in breaking the original promise to the taxpayers that the jail would be at no cost to them. Gregg also mentioned in his email to Dan and I that this policy would raise concerns, the county and federal agreements that are in place about concerns to house future inmates. If our current jail financing structure that we have had in place for a number of years, that could return the jail to the trustee at any time, has not been an issue for Cook County and the U.S. Marshal Service to send us prisoners, then I don't think this policy will affect referrals, as I see it. As a professional courtesy, I shared the copy of this policy with Monty Shell, Chairman of the Public Building Commission. Monty indicated to me in his feedback about the policy that he would like to see when the jail has a great year, that the excess revenue over what the county needs to operate the jail be escrowed for the benefit of the jail when the jail would have lean years. That's a good idea. I think that I could support, and I think others could, policy language that would be added. Please note that my efforts to bring attention to the importance of this policy for tonight's meeting is not being done to undermine anyone's authority, process of debate, or is political in nature. But my effort is to have a livened and broader discussion with the taxpayers on the issues involving their interests. I will now read the policy in draft format. History. In 2010, taxable bonds were issued by the Public Building Commission as directed by the County Board to construct a jail addition and to renovate the current jail facilities at a cost of $6,060,000. Due to significant concerns raised by the citizens of Mercer County, certain representations were made about the jail by members of the Public Building Commission and the County Board. Number one, the jail will not cost the citizens of the county one penny. In other words, the jail would be self-sufficient. Two, if the jail ended up being an operational problem, the county board could choose not to appropriate payment to the PBC, which would return the jail to the trustee, U.S. Bank. And just as a matter of record, I did pull the appropriation agreement, the use and cooperation agreement on C1, C, there's clearly the ability for the county board not to appropriate. Current conditions. The jail expansion has been open 2 years and at this point has not reached a stabilized outside prisoner census. The refinance, if approved, would remove the representations made by previous county boards of long-term property tax increase protection. The citizens of Mercer County would not approve any ballot referendum for the jail refinance at this time, encumbering them to an $8,376,833 total bill for the next 16 and a half years, and that would be what the refinance cost would be. So the policy is simple and straightforward. Should the direct revenue for the jail fall below the direct expenses for the jail, such as salaries, benefits, food, medical, transportation, principal and interest payments, the sheriff would be directed by the county board to cut the jail expense budget to the level of revenue received from the prior year. This policy would ensure that neither the property owners of Mercer County nor other essential county departments would have the responsibility of paying for the jail operations. Now, at this time, and certainly open up for, I'm sure, what will be robust debate.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
first
Schroeder.
off, I appreciate the fact you trying to nail me on this. As I was putting the policy together, I reached out to Dan, as our special board minutes directed me to do. However, at any time, were any of these meetings that we were to have posted in accordance with the Open Meeting Act?
I sent you a draft policy, Dean. I didn't have a meeting with you. I sent you a draft policy.
That could also be construed as an Open Meeting Act, because I pulled it up.
So if two people
And
talk
it
about
is
a
up to the
policy-
chairman of the county board to appoint a committee, not up to you. Second of all, you're sitting there saying that this is not politically involved. But yet, here I'm reading, what does it take to run the jail? That's what I want, by the Democrats of the board, it was voted down by the Democrats of the board. Your policy to go through and get an idea of what the jail costs was voted down by the board. Not just the Democrats, but by this board. The citizens of this county elected this board, and it was the board. Just because you're upset that you didn't get your way, you didn't get it done the way you wanted, doesn't mean anything. You're sitting here saying that we don't have any financial numbers. We have no consensus. What I've done is I've gone back the past 39 months that this jail's been in operation. At the bottom page on the 2011, you'll see that we received $601,331.95. During the construction process, you'll see what we received in 2012, $189,931. 2013 is $1,292,574.45, and in the 3 months of 2014 is $413,073. So what I basically did, if you look on the last page, you would see I took them 39 months, came up with a total, divided that out to get a monthly average, and then took it times 12 to come up with the number of years. This averages out to about $768,280.58. And you subtracted 4 jailers, which was the original agreement. Nobody ever said that this jail would pay for every jailer in this jail. That's $142,000. So you go ahead and do the arithmetic, subtract that $142,467, you still come up with $625,804 a year. To me, that's a pretty good consensus. And if the media would like a copy of that, I'd be more than glad to give that to them, because these are factual numbers. It's not something I made up. I'll get you a copy.
Dan, I appreciate your numbers, and my statement regarding the compilation that we talked about last month was to independently validate how this jail would do over the next 30 years. I'm glad you put numbers together, and you know, I'm sure I could talk to others in this room who would put numbers together, and we could sit around and we could talk about each other's numbers.
I'm sure we could.
The truth is, Dan, that I'm talking about a policy that if we refinance this jail, certain representations that were made would go away. And I just want to make sure that we protect the citizens. I hope the jail does so good that we're just rolling in the dough, okay? I really mean that. I really mean that, Dan. But if we refinance this jail and we clearly give up negotiation positions, I just want to make sure that this board, future boards can do what they want to, Dan, but this board is consistent with the promises that were made. That's all I'm asking, Dan.
Ted, I have explained this several times here at this board meeting, this very board. These comments that are on here, the jail will not cost the citizens of this county one penny, that was never stated.
Was that ever
We
stated?
were talking about jail expansion. Now let me continue. You have here, if the jail ended up in an operational problem, the county board could choose not to appropriate payments to the Public Loan Commission, which would return the jail to the trustees. That's not a true statement either. How the whole process was written, how it works, is we had the existing jail, which was paid off, what, approximately 10 years? In which this county enjoyed the proceeds of that money for 10 years, paid off. Now, we decided to put this jail expansion on. And in so doing, certain revenues were supposed to remain with the county board. The expansion project is basically a whole separate entity. The expansion project of the additional beds, if we were to default on that right there, basically what's going to happen is they're going to come in and they're going to run it. And they're going to run it and they're going to take every bit of the revenue from the new portion of the jail. Once that is paid off, they're going to give that jail back to us. That was the original agreement, which was signed way back when. So,
Well, Dan, I'm just
we're
looking
not
at the
basically giving out the
appropriation.
jail, and I'm giving you these numbers, people. And I haven't even given you the numbers of the local prisoners that we
Let's
have.
do a compilation. I'm all open for transparency and independent compilation done by our auditors.
My opinion of the compilation is they're only gonna use the numbers we give them. And I've talked to our accountant. He says, the only numbers I have to use are the ones you give us. So why do we give them the numbers, pay them up to $6,000 to do this computation?
Jeff, they would use historical costs. Those aren't numbers we give them. Those are actual audited results. And then the only number we would give them is to tell them what do we believe the jail outside prisoner revenue would be. That's the only number they would need to do this calculation.
So what's so hard about this that we need to have them do this, Ted, other than us? I mean, you're just willing to spend the $6,000.
Jeff, it's a matter of knowing how the jail's gonna do independent. At last month's meeting, you said, Ted, you could do the numbers.
Yes.
I could do the numbers, but you know what? We'd sit around this room and everybody would attack them. Yes or no?
We would have open discussion on it at that time.
I've requested your numbers before, Ted,
Yeah.
when you were saying, when we started out this year, how many millions of dollars in debt we were and all this and that. And I'm like, show me the numbers.
Well,
I never did get to see
well,
them numbers. Right now, I want to get back with the fact that I have not brought into consideration even the 220 local prisoners that we house a year. That's the average. Now, let's say we get rid of this jail. Guess what? You just cost the taxpayers of this county a lot of money because we're gonna have to pay somebody to
I
house
haven't said to get rid of this jail. In my opening statement, I made it clear I want this jail to succeed.
From all the emails I've read,
My
I
emails
can't
have been,
make head or tail about some of them.
my emails are stating the facts as I see them. Now, you can disagree with them,
And I'm doing that.
okay? But all I'm saying clearly is that I want to see this refinance happen. Let's put a jail policy in place that allows that to happen.
Well, also on a refinance policy, we'll stick with the policy now that I've got the numbers out. The citizens of Mercer County will not approve any ballot referendum. You are one person in this county. Plain and simple.
Let's put it on a referendum.
The trouble of it is.
Let's put it on a,
Plain and
let's
simple.
put it
You
on,
do
let's
not
put it
have
on.
the right to say all the citizens of this county will not approve
Let's
this.
put it on a referendum. If you're so confident, I would love to see, do we still have
Why
time
do we,
to put it on
why
a
do we
referendum?
even need to?
To ask,
What is the
are we
issue here
elected by
that
the
you want to do
taxpayers or are
about
we
this
elected
policy?
by ourselves?
I'm elected by the taxpayers.
Okay, all right.
And I represent the taxpayers. I'm not representing personal public interest by any means.
Look, we can continue to debate this. Obviously, there's not the wherewithal to approve a policy, so.
There is one other little thing here. In 1992, state statute said that anything like this had to be put before the voters. And it sure as hell wasn't.
Well, but that's a different story for.
No, it's not.
No, it's a good story, but it's for a different day. It's a great story, okay? Why wasn't it put before the
That's
voters?
exactly right. They broke the law when they didn't do that.
You wanna know what my initial problem with Mercer County Jail refinance policies wrote it? Is you say the jail expansion has been open 2 years. Bill, when was the expansion open? I thought it was last February when it's completed. Am I wrong? Paula?
It's been about a year and a half, almost 2 years, 2 years, but we had also, I don't know where you're figuring the time from as far as housing, okay?
Yeah, 'cause,
We're
I mean,
trying to get the
We
housing
weren't up to
back.
100% capacity until approximately,
Did
not
we,
much more than a year
did
ago.
we have expenses in place when it opened? Were expenses in place? Were salaries and expenses in place? That's my
They were,
question. Okay,
yeah.
so salaries and expenses were
But the
in place, and that was my
expansion has
point.
not been open for 2 years for total.
Well, but we've been paying for the jail for 2 years.
Well, yeah, but that's not.
Jeff, as I said,
Yeah.
I'm open to
Okay.
wordsmithing this policy. I'm not dictatorial here. I have come here as a gentleman saying, here's the facts as I understand them. Let's put a policy in place. I'm open to changes to the policy, but I'm not open to not protecting the taxpayer. That I would not support. But I'm open
I
to.
think we're jeopardizing taxpayers more by cutting the sheriff's budget to operate this and then have prisoners coming in at that time and not having the staff to take care of them. Receive them.
Well,
I mean, if we encumber them in the prior year, then we have problems, nobody's gonna send us any prisoners, so then we get farther behind, so then next year, then we have to cut it more. I mean, it's a spiraling road to destruction.
So now I see you're handing out a policy, Dan? Yep. Okay.
So why can't we put it on a referendum?
Well,
I mean,
Is it-
that's the issue of the.
What will the referendum prove? I mean, it's the Public Building Commission has responsibilities to finance this jail, it's not the county of Mercer. Is that pro?
There you go.
Is that correct, Monty?
Freaking let him close it.
It's there.
Of course, Super Dan Schroeder just said that wasn't the case.
He knows all. He's gospel right there. His numbers don't add up
Oh,
either.
no, not even close. 220. If we averaged 15 days, that's like $273,000. It costs more to have jailers at the sheriff's.
Right now, I've handed out another one, and if everybody will just take the time to read it, basically what it's doing, it's going over the current conditions, it's also bringing in the issue about the problems that we're having with this IRS and the possible financial burden this can put on people, taxpayers, the Public Building Commission, as part of another reason for refinancing this jail. And it's gonna save the taxpayer, save $500,000. I'm not gonna say it saves taxpayers $500,000, because the fact is, right now, with the numbers I've given you, you can see how much money this jail has been giving this county. They're paying not only for their prisoners, paying for that, making that jail payment. I mean, these numbers can't lie. I don't care how you look at them, how you wanna report them. Now, you can say, well, you didn't add on this or that, or subtract this. Transport fees are pretty much kind of wiped clean in a sense, so maybe I shouldn't be adding the transport fees on there. I don't know if I did, I'd have to look at that again. But I tried to be as accurate and honest as I can on it, and these are actual numbers. Nothing has been fabricated.
Dan, if you're saying that you folks are open to a policy, I'm willing to sit down and talk to you, Dan. That's what I attempted to do earlier in the week. And you're saying I'm violating some open meetings act, I'm sorry. I'm still trying to learn the rules around here, but bottom line is I'm open to working together on a constructive policy.
The whole purpose of this was to refinance, to get us out from underneath that IRS burden. Other counties are running into this problem. The IRS is taking more and more monies away from us. It originally started out, what was the percentage that they started out paying? Do you remember?
178,000.
178,000 a year, and now it's down to,
168.
and with this kind of being a business, now the IRS has come back and saying, well, this may be a business. We don't know that for a fact. But we do know that the IRS can come back now and say, oh, wait, we're gonna audit you. We think you're operating a business out of this jail, trying to make money to support your county. Kind of true, I guess. But the fact is, we need a jail. We have it. Let's make the best of it, and let's say $500,000 refinance it. Yes, it will take away the possibility of giving back the new part of that jail. That's all it's gonna do. Nothing else. The old jail's still gonna be there. How they're gonna separate that is beyond me. I have no idea.
That's what they promised to do.
But that's what was in the original agreement, and by doing it this way, by refinancing it, we're getting out from underneath that IRS. Granted, we won't be able to foreclose or not make the payments on the jail. But right now, in the past 39 months, I've proven that the jail has been making the payments. There shouldn't be any question. I mean, the 1 year was a very, very bad year. I mean, you look at the numbers that was given out just in the first 3 months this year, you can see it's been a pretty decent year. That's even the Cook County prisoners not being available the whole time.
Dan, I apologize your efforts here. I mean, I know you've been a big proponent of the jail, and I respect that, and I'm not challenging that. You've been a champion of the jail, and I commend you for that. You know, but like I said, I'm open to working together. As I said a couple of Saturdays ago, you know, I've come into this meeting not without negotiation. Everything's a negotiation.
Right.
Okay? It's a negotiation.
Appreciate that.
If at the end of the day, everybody gets what they want, and the county saves money, the taxpayers, and we can get out from under some of these problems that have been created. You know, I mean, look, I feel bad for Monty, because every time Monty signs documents that he's in compliance, you know, Monty's my friend. I've worked with Monty for months on this. Monty is not, he's a servant, and he serves the PBC, and he works hard. He doesn't get paid a dime. And I've worked with Monty, and I want to help Monty here too, okay? But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure. I mean, Dan, think about this. If all of a sudden something were to happen and all our inmates went away, you know, they change laws, they legalize marijuana, they make other drugs legal. In Illinois, you never know what may happen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, our prisoner drops way down, okay?
Yes.
That's my concern is long-term. You know, I'm concerned that over the last 3 months, our Cook County inmate population dropped. I think everybody was feeling very good. When we put our budget together, I sat right here, and there were law enforcement people that shook their heads, and I said, folks, is 71 the right number? Paula, did I not?
That's what you guys put in there, 71.
But I asked the staff, is this the numbers that you can support? And the staff said they could. Now, I'm not trying to pick on the staff, because I know we're still trying to feel our way here.
Right.
What I am saying, though, is that we can't close our eyes to the fact that if this jail runs into problems, we're gonna have a problem on our hands. I just wanna make sure that the first exit ramp isn't, well, let's tax the taxpayer. That's what I don't wanna see, Dan. That's all I'm trying to say.
I understand that.
So if you're willing to work on a comprehensive policy that we can bring back and pass before we vote on the refinance, I am open to that and willing to work with you.
I see no reason why we have to have a policy that says, oh, we're gonna throw this jail away. I'm looking at these other numbers that I have, payment and cost of employees plus the cost of insurance, and basically, once you boil it all down, to actually, at $50 a day, we would really only need 39.7 inmates to operate this jail, the new part of this jail.
Dan, let me put it another way. If this jail went south, okay, and then we had to push it all on the taxpayer, and we just took out the payment, and again, this isn't an exact science, but I assume we have 5,000 homeowners in Mercer County. That assumption could be high, it could be low, but that's what I've been told. If we took this payment and we spread it out over 16.5 years, and we took that out, and we said, what would the taxpayer be on the hook for? On average, it's about $100 a year. Well, you know what, that buys a lot of groceries, that fills up your car a couple of times. Well, now you're driving a truck like me, and you should drive something more efficient. All I'm saying, Dan, is that I believe there should be a policy. We need to continue to be diligent in how we move forward. I'm open to moving forward with a policy that will accomplish that.
This can be accomplished every year at budget time.
Yes.
I mean, there's no sense, what's the sense of writing a policy when you can see every year when we sit down and do our budget and vote on it in November, we know if we had a train wreck, at that time we could address it, the current board can address it. So why are we making a policy?
Jeff, can I ask you a question? Because I think you raised a good point.
Okay,
I think you raised a good point. My answer is, 2 months ago, you and I and Larry and George sat in a room here, and we knew that our census was dropping. We knew that our census was lowering. And we made a decision as a budget committee that we would ask the sheriff to consider cutting $8,000 a month out of his budget. Do you remember having that meeting?
remember having a meeting, yes. I can't remember numbers in particular or.
George, you remember us having a meeting? Larry, do you remember us having that meeting?
From the meeting, the numbers, not.
Well, just to refresh your memory, we said 8,000 a month. George, did you talk to the sheriff about that number?
I didn't talk to him about the specific number, I talked to him about possibly cutting his budget, you know, to meet the numbers.
My point is that we can talk. And we did talk, and we all felt like, hey, we needed to do something because the revenue was dropping, and nothing happened. That's my point, Jeff. Now, regardless of what the number was, and maybe you can't remember, maybe I can't, but we talked about getting expenses reduced. That I know we talked about.
Yeah.
So,
But we're gonna try to go through that as a yearly average, and it's kinda knee-jerk almost to be adjusting it when we're only 2 months into the year.
well, but remember we talked about how John Deere, I gave you the John Deere article, and I said, look what John Deere's doing, because they know they're gonna have less tractors to sell this year at farmers. They cut expenses up there and they laid people off. Because they're running like a business. Dan said we're trying to kind of run this still like a business to a degree, and if we're gonna do that, then we should run it more like a business. I love that. I think that's a great analysis.
But the point is too, okay, let's say we create this policy. Now we have so many jailers. Oh, wait a minute. Our inmate population's down this month because it's really, really freezing outside, and the prisoners aren't, or bad people ain't even going out committing crimes, it's so doggone cold. Well, your jail population's gonna go down, you're gonna lay off your jailers are gonna go find another job, and now all of a sudden, summer rolls around here, and your population goes up like it does every year. And our federal inmates have been going up gradually over the months. If you look back at the actual numbers, what's gonna happen is, now you don't have the jailers, they find a nut job somewhere else, and now, guess what? Well, we're not gonna bring our inmates over there, so now we've just declined our jail even more.
Dan, you're right, okay? But my point is that the way this policy is written, or the way I'd like to see it, is that it would be done on a budget year. It wouldn't be done on a whim. We wouldn't say, well, we've had 3 bad months because now we've got summer coming and the jail may fill up and we may have 6 great months. That's why I'm saying you would do it on an annual look behind, not to punish anyone for just a 3-month shortfall. Okay?
Okay?
So, do we have consensus or don't we, to work on a policy to direct Dan and I, as gentlemen, to work on a policy, and I don't have a problem even involving Monty, because Monty's you.
Well, we'll address this on for a committee possibly in item 17 in the regular Mercer County Board agenda where we have committee assignments.
Fair enough.
I would like to see us go ahead and approve the refinance, so that the, Public Building Commission can get on and get this jail refinanced.
I thought we approved that last meeting for them to give.
Well, there's a final vote. There's a
Right,
final vote.
but we don't know what we're voting on yet, so there's no
You know,
sense.
no, and I'm
It's not on
hoping
the
that
agenda,
we
so.
have a policy to help us make a final decision on the vote, so. Jeff, I appreciate you bringing it to the county, board agenda. I thank you for that. Okay, is there any other discussions about this? I mean, I know Dan and I kind of had boxing gloves here, but we're taking them off now.
Yeah.
We're allowing the rest of you to have comment.
Well, if we base this on hypotheticals, my point is we can figure, if we figure that we're gonna have slack time, like John here, I work there some years. And I know what it's like to be laid off, one of those employees to be laid off. But that's here and there. But how do we allocate the people where we max out the place? See, the hotter it gets, the more people we put in jail.
Hey, look,
And we've
that's
gotta
a great
have,
idea.
we've gotta have employees, so we can't associate John Deere with
Well,
our-
but you know, Gary, but here's the thing, here's what concerns me, okay? What concerns me is this. The history bothers me. When we opened the jail, we didn't have the revenue, but yet we hired all these people, okay? No revenue to support it, so the jail was just, and I understand that someone could say, well, you know, we need to get staff hired in advance. That's fine, 60 days, 90 days, advance, but not a year.
Yeah, but we've never had any history built where we didn't know.
Well, we have
beforehand
history of expenses.
Whether it was a year or whether it was 60 days, you know?
If you go back and look at that package, man, you'll see TBC was paying the jailers, 4 jailers' wages.
They're 42,000.
So, that's my concern, is that just history, and I don't want to repeat history. So, we've got it on the county agenda, and that's more than I could ask for, and I appreciate Mr. McWhorter taking it to the county board meeting for, hopefully, approval, but we'll see. Okay, transportation, Jeff, that's you, isn't it?
Yep, let's run through, we're gonna advance to the county board a resolution for appropriating $60,000 from federal aid matching to motor fuel. I don't really think we need to vote on this now, because it needs to be voted on in board meeting, it's just kind of redundant to the finance committee to vote on it also, what do you think? Okay, can I have a motion to move this to the full board then for vote? Resolution to appropriate $60,000.
I'll call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Okay, next, we also need to approve moving the 2014 IDOT audit motor fuel tax funds for approval at the full board. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none?
Also, we need a motion, and I'll make it, to move the 2014 IDOT audit township bridge funds for vote at the full board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Also, we need a motion to move the 2014 IDOT Audit Road District Fund reimbursement for motor fuel tax for $5,102.23.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
All right, we have our claims before us. Phyllis, what's the total for those? I'm looking in my packet here. We have claims of,
$362,219.80.
all right. Okay.
We're good for that, already, Jeff?
We make that motion?
Why did that, Deb? You're good for it.
Well, we've got a lot of
Okay.
credit, Jeff.
Yeah.
Nice, you know, we're only into a couple $100,000, we have 750, so
Yeah,
let's not
okay.
use it.
Oh. I make a motion to pay the claims.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any other business or non-action items to come before the board? Hearing none, we do have public comment. Is there any public comment this evening? Mr. Sosman, you have 3 minutes and you need to stick to the agenda.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Schroeder put out some numbers that, I think he mentioned the number was like, what, about 124,000 was the salary, for the 4 jailers? You're 142,000?
Yeah.
You're kind of forgetting a big factor in this.
Yes.
Insurance, IMRF, you got all that in there. I mean, I think the numbers that the county used when they hired the 4 additional was gonna be, somewhere around 200,000 for starting salary on that. Now, you also talked about, our local inmates, what a great cost this would be. Would you agree or disagree that we house approximately 15 a day for local inmates? At $50 a day, which Henry County could actually house those if a disastrous program happened that we couldn't maintain our jail, that'd be a cost to the county of about $273,750. Now, if we didn't have jailers anymore, not factoring in part-time, overtime, and transportation, that'd be a savings of the county of about $640,000. So when you're gonna throw your numbers around, I would appreciate it if they are accurate, and if you're gonna hand those to the press, I would appreciate it if they're accurate. Thank you.
Mr. Sosman, thank you for your comment. Stuck to the agenda, I appreciate that. Yes, there's a comment over here. Can you identify yourself,
I'm
please?
Lori Bluthorn. This maybe is a question about the inmates. I know that the Muscatine County Jail was built at the same time the Mercer County Jail was built, so I'm wondering, is there competition between the 2 jails? Now, are we getting inmates from Iowa anymore? Secondly, when Thompson Federal Prison is built, I know Illinois has put a lot of money into rebuilding or remodeling that prison. Will we even see any federal prisoners coming in after that Thompson Federal Prison is ready for use?
Laura, I don't think, it's hypothetical, and I don't want to speculate on Thompson. I know that, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe you do, Lonnie, can an Illinois county facility, maybe the sheriff knows the answer, could we house Iowa folks?
Yeah.
If you want to stand up and say, Muscatine,
And Thompson
Dubuque,
only house sentenced
Muscatine.
inmates.
No, I've heard.
What is, for us non-law people, what does that mean? That long-term, I've been sentenced 5 years, 10 years, they're going to the big house, right?
You got
That is,
Yeah, the people that we house right now,
they're pre-sentence.
yeah, they're
These are
either
pre-sentence,
awaiting trial or waiting a sentence.
so they have not been fully, they're being held as they're going through due process.
Or they may come back and testify.
Okay, that's good to know. I think Lori asked a good question. It's good to understand these things. Any other public comments tonight? Yes?
I would just like to
Can you
address,
say your name, please?
massages,
Okay.
address Mr. Schroeder, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I get the feeling that almost like you don't want any provision in there to protect the taxpayers of the county. You seem pretty adamant to be against what Mr. Pappas is bringing forth, so if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but that's kind of the feeling I get.
I have no problem protecting the taxpayers whatsoever. The problem that I have is that under certain policies, and we don't have a policy written, I'm very concerned that as soon as a prisoner count starts falling, we're gonna lay off our jailers. Then it's just going to cascade right on down. So I just wanna make sure that we have a good policy in place, if a policy is even needed. Now, do we really need a policy? Because we discuss this every year. But what we need to do is get off this jail and start concentrating more on other issues that are facing this county. If you've seen the numbers, and yes, I know I did not put in the insurance numbers and that kind of stuff. The insurance numbers are actually on the paper. You can add them in there. You can still see what kind of revenue that the jail is bringing in. I don't have a problem with that. I'm trying to be as honest and fair as I can with everybody.
Okay. I think that's a great question, and if we do have a policy, which I hope we do, I hope that it does have well, it will have to have for me to support a protection for the taxpayer. So I think you got a fair question. Mr. Schroeder and I are agreeing, I think we're probably agreeing on more than we're disagreeing tonight, but if we get a direction and pass a policy, it'll be interesting to see what this policy ends up looking like. But again, as I said, everything's a negotiation and everything's a compromise, but there's certain things I will not negotiate away, and that's the taxpayer being on the hook. So, any other public comments back there? Yes, Mr. Van.
Yeah, Joe Van, I'm from New Boston, Mr. Schroeder's precinct there. Well, I'm looking over this policy, okay, the first 3 paragraphs are just boilerplate, they don't mean anything. Going right down to the policy, okay, I have a question, okay. So this policy is that if the jail income exceeds, is less than what the, okay, boil it down, okay, let's see. If they start bringing in less money than what was, it costs to run the jail, the sheriff will be, directed to cut the jail's expenses to the level of revenue received the prior year. Is
Yes.
that correct?
If this policy would be.
If this policy was
Would
enacted.
be implemented, to answer your question, that is
Okay,
correct.
so that means they'd have to have this would only go into effect once a year, or?
It would be once a year, because I
Okay,
don't
so
think it's fair.
when it comes up with budget time.
It would come up at budget time, you know, because we have some swings and things, I think it should be annually looked at as part of the budget. If the jail does fine, no question of needing policy. If it doesn't, that's the question.
Okay, so if it balances out during the, it's not gonna be a monthly
No,
thing.
no, 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 no one could work under those conditions or operate under
Right,
those conditions.
absolutely.
That would not be
It
fair.
would be over the whole year, and says, okay, if you're not making any expenses, your budget for this coming year is gonna be cut to what you brought in last year. Is that?
That's the way the policy that I read.
That's the way this
tonight.
policy reads.
The one
Okay,
that I
that's
put
all I
together.
have.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Dan, did you want to comment? Anything else? Comment at all? I have another question. Can you identify yourself, sir? And
It's Harvey Lunard. I was wondering if you examined any other counties or any other experience that you might actually have had as a board with a similar sort of situation. I don't know if the nursing home would come in or not, they'd probably run a little bit differently. But other counties that have, not necessarily with jails, but with other things. Have you examined any other counties' policies and how they may have worked out?
I have not looked at any other policies. I do know that Henry County, our neighbor, takes Cook County inmates. And I do know, from what I've heard through George, that they haven't had a Cook County inmate in how long, George?
Year and a half.
Year and a half. So some counties may benefit from Cook County, some counties may not. To answer your question, that's the only thing I know is one county. And maybe not one county is a mathematical or statistical fact. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, has any other, you haven't examined other counties as to this kind of a situation?
You mean a policy like this?
Yes.
No, and you know what, that may be a good point, and maybe worth a Google to find out if there's other counties that have dealt with similar things. So I think it's a fair question, sir. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate hearing from you.
I'd like to add to that though.
Sure.
Because the policies that were written for Henry County are not the same policies that were written for Mercer County.
I agree, Gary. I don't know
There are
if
some
Henry County has a
differences there
policy.
To where they may have had problems with Cook County that we don't endeavor to have those particular problems.
I think Gary raises a good point, because one thing that we do know about Cook County and Henry County is they take about a year to pay the prisoners. So it may be that Cook County, or Henry County said to Cook County, thanks but no thanks, because you take a year to pay us. Now, we're paid, I believe, on a 30-day with Cook County, are we not? So every 30 days, we send a bill and we get paid. Now, I know Henry County, from what I understand, so I think that does speak to your point, Gary. Any other comments? Monty? Sure.
Monty Shell, Public Building Commission, New Boston.
answer to Mr. Sossman's question over there, it's $188,000 that was in the actual budget for the jail. Let's do a little history on the jail. First, Ted, did you get a chance to read that document that Dan turned, give to you? His draft review policy?
I was involved in a lively debate. I will read it because it's worth reading. I apologize if I didn't.
Yeah, you'll see all my points and questions and comments in there that you and I had in our discussions. Let's go with the history of the jail. Back in 2003, Mercer County done a study on the jail. They had issues with ADA compliance, they had segregation issues, and that was a study done back in 2003. Back in 2008, they done another study. They hired a firm that done a study, and that's where these numbers come from. The break-even number for the jailers was for the prisoners, for 4 prisoners and the expenses, 4 jailers and the expenses were to be 37 prisoners. Break-even number. That was a number that was thrown out for 20 years. The jail was originally in 2010. They wanted to do a 10-year term. Keep paying. Any money coming in from extra prisoners goes towards paying down the principal and the debt. 2008, the original is what they wanted to do, was supposed to, any excess was to go pay down the debt, pay this down early. The first chance we have to pay down the debt on this, if we miss this refinance, is 2020, 10 years from now. If the IRS goes away, the subsidies that we get will be on the hook for another $170,000 a year. Right now, with the refinance, it has saved the county $500,000. This county board has until April 25th to make that decision. That is the day that we have to notify the trustee of our intentions to redeem the bonds. The policy, Ted, hope you read it.
I can't find that. Dan, could you give me another copy? I'm looking for it here, and I think the policy Monster 8. I don't have it. I would, again, I will read it, Lonnie. I will study it, and I will give it a fair review. Are you sure you handed out not an invisible ink, Dan, because nobody seems to have it?
I don't know.
All right.
It looks somewhat like yours, but it's got the politics out.
Well, you know, Monty, as I said, I came to this meeting with an open mind, but I don't think we can remove the taxpayer out of it. We can remove politics, but we can't remove the taxpayer. So, with that in mind, I agree with it. Monty, I just had a quick question. You said a study was done in 2008. Who did that study? I was just curious. Was that the company that actually sold us the bonds?
Norm Cutler?
Norm Underwood.
Norm Underwood, used to be the old auditing firm.
So they were the audit firm before
Yes.
Carpentier, Mitchell, and Goddard?
Luckner engineer out of one.
All right. Monty, did you have any other comments?
Nope.
I appreciate your comments, Monty. You went a little over 3 minutes, but I'm going to be fair, okay? This is a pretty emotional topic. Yes, there's a comment here.
I'm Paula Nelson, Administrative Assistant at the Mercer County Sheriff's Office. So you're saying, Mr. Pappas, that the refinance is contingent on this policy?
I am saying, and let me just review what I said. I said that I am for this policy, or this refinance, but I'm also for making sure that the taxpayer is protected. So in the end of the day, if I'm not comfortable with what is presented, I will have to vote no.
I remember all of you stating the fact that if we save $1 in regards to refinancing, that we should go for that. We are sitting here right now with a $500,000 plus savings to the taxpayers right now to do a refinancing. And we have a deadline approaching April 25th. So are you saying that you want that to go away, and so that we're going to have to come up with the $500,000 extra. Would that be a fiduciary cost saving to the county?
Well, Paula, right now in the budget, it is the old payment. We did not plan on a refinance to happen. So there's nothing as far as this year in the budget. When we put the budget together, we assumed, did we not, Jeff and Monty, that we would.
$500,000 is already in this year's budget.
530, I think.
Yeah,
That's the way the
we
budget
went
was
ahead and
written.
just budgeted what the cost to the jail would be this year. We made no assumptions that this refinance would happen, because at that time, we just, didn't know. But, thank you. I appreciate your comment. What's that?
We have to pass these claims around too.
I don't know what planet I am on, Jeff, right now. I mean, we've been talking about everything, so. Jeff, maybe so.
Can we start?
Yeah, let's start now, but I just want to make sure before we close the meeting, if there's any other public comment, I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to share what's on their mind. Yes, sir.
Dan Nelson, very technical. So you're saying that we've got to get this jail refinancing done by April 25th, and so that means the end of tonight, you're gonna have to make a decision, yes or no, right?
No.
Doesn't have to be tonight, I don't think.
Oh, is there another board meeting?
Well, we have to call it.
Well, there's going to be public hearings, there's going to be opportunity for the public to come and speak about
Before the 25th of April?
I believe, isn't there gonna, well, the Public Building Commission is gonna have public hearings, and the county board is gonna have
We'll have to have a special meeting.
a public hearing, 15 days, I think it has.
We have to lay the lease out for 15 days for review.
So it's not an end all tonight, it's a discussion.
You gotta wait 50, you gotta have a hearing in 15 days. I think you don't have to
Okay,
get it.
we don't have to have them.
Well, we're working hard here to get it done, so thank you, Mr. Nelson, I appreciate the comment.
That $500,000 seems like a lot of money, but it's only $38,000 a year. And we're looking at 16 and a half years, that stuff just kind of goes, that little bit of money just kind of flows through the cracks.
I would say we need to get off the jail and get on to the business. Now, we're going to start passing, before I shut down public comment, is there any other public comment? I want to make sure everyone's had a chance to. Okay, we are going to, by the grace of God, adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?